happening now. We'd like to welcome our viewers from across North America and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room, episode 269 for September the 7th, 2022. My name is Wes Fryer, and I'm coming to you from Matthews, North Carolina, just south of Charlotte, where I am a media literacy and robotics middle school teacher at Providence Day School. And joining me, as always, via one of his many ways to get on the internet, which doesn't include Starlink yet, but I wouldn't be surprised, folks, if he doesn't add that to his arsenal. It's Dr. Jason Neiffer coming to us, I think, from Helena, Montana. How are you, Jason?
I'm well, Dr. Fryer. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And indeed, I am in lovely Helena, Montana, the state capital, my hometown, for about 20 years when I went to college and first started teaching in my early career. And it's lovely to be back in this beautiful city. So I will say it's been a little smoky here. There's some Western fires that have dumped their skywares into our general state air zone. And I would say that it's a little chewy out there is the way I would describe the air right now. But we're feeling pretty lucky that this didn't happen until September and that it's not a lot of direct Montana fires at least yet. And we're hoping that stays true for the rest of the potential fire season.
Oh, I just keep on replaying in my mind that video of that cabin in that, flood up by the north entrance to Yellowstone, and just crazy, crazy weather. So, well, we are here to talk about some tech news, and the rumor was that there was an Apple event today. So what are we going to do here tonight, Dr. Neiffer?
Well, I imagine we're going to talk ad nauseum about the Apple event because that's what Apple nerds do. But in case that bores us for whatever reason, we have some Google news, some privacy surveillance news, VR, AR, metaverse news, some media literacy information, perhaps an article or two on crypto, the tech correction, where we talk about some vague notion of technology evolving past all the UG it seems to be the source of right now. Our miscellaneous category. At the end of our show tonight, we'll share our geeks of the week. So I guess it begs, do we do Apple now or do we do after?
Oh, let's jump right into Apple. And we do want to let everybody know Jason is on a Verizon hotspot tonight. So he may have a little connectivity issues. We're gonna give this the best go and see if he is not able to participate for an extended period of time. We may curtail the show a little shorter, but he has frozen on my screen. So hopefully he will either reanimate. Oh, there's his voice. He's back.
Okay.
You are sounding like a bit choppy, so I don't know. We'll see. It was the beginning was sounding great. Do you want to try turning off video and seeing if audio only can work? Oh, he's joining again. All right. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, joining us again. Well, if all those fails, you could go audio only.
Okay. Yep. Good to know.
But yeah, we can go with this again and see. So yeah, I think we ought to go ahead and just go with Apple. Does that sound okay?
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay. All right, so we do want to let everyone know you can go to our website, edtechsr.com/links, to check out the links for tonight's show. That's where the subtitled topics that Jason has shared are listed. I actually was able to watch most of the Apple event live today, and so it was pretty exciting. I mean, as I said last week, I mean it's always incredible. From a visual and digital storytelling standpoint. Anyway, I think it was pretty remarkable. This is a Twitter event link that was trending today, and this is from the Wirecutter. And the subtitle here is, here's what you need to know about the new iPhone 14, AirPods Pro, Apple Watch Ultra, and more. I guess my first question is just going to be to, what stood out, if anything. For me, it was really the SOS feature of the iPhone 14 to be able to connect to satellites. I was just exclaiming aloud to myself as they were describing that. because they've worked a long time for this with a bunch of different technologies. I think I'll drop it in, but there was The Verge had an article a couple days ago that said that's unlikely that that's going to actually happen, but it did happen. The technology is such that if you are out in the sticks, as I know you can be in Montana from time to time where there's not any cellular connectivity, and you need to get an SOS out to call for emergency assistance, you actually launch the app and it will help you point your phone to a satellite, because it has to be pointed at a overhead satellite in order to work. And then they've also managed to change the protocols, because it can't send a full SMS length message. It has to be shortened. And so they have worked with a bunch of emergency, I guess, first responder groups, what kinds of information are going to be critical. And so it's menu based, and it can send in a very efficient manner the information that you need to be able to get assistance. And then you're going to be able to actually connect to the satellite. So that was the number one most exciting thing to me. The second one, just the camera and the iPhoneography power of the iPhone is just, very tempting to me. And the iPod Pro, what am I trying to say? The AirPod Pros. We just actually purchased for our daughter's 19th birthday some AirPod Pros, but of course they were the old version, which Costco had on sale. But they say it's going to be double the noise cancellation. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Neiffer, you're an owner of some AirPod Pros, are you not? And you've even experienced them on an airplane?
Yes, I do, and I have, and they are really solid buys. And I would say that if you either take audio quality really seriously, which is not me, that's not why I'm an AirPods Pro user, or if you would like a very thoughtful hardware device for audio, like if you use it for a microphone, for example, on calls or perhaps even on a podcast, they're a pretty good investment. That said, I thought it was interesting when they had to announce today about the updates, but I'm good enough with my pair for right now. I want to comment on one other thing, Dr. Fryer, and then I have a couple other kind of random thoughts about the event. The satellite thing is really interesting for people like myself that live in an area where outside of cities, cell coverage is absolutely sketchy at best. And there have been times when I've had a flat tire or have something happen to my car or a relative's car when you were out of cell coverage. And this was recently, in the last couple of years, where this is the case, which means that you have to rely on the kindness of strangers, or you sometimes can dial 911 and that'll get you to another tower, whether it's owned by your cell phone carrier or not. That sometimes works, but I was very impressed with this option today because I think it provides some really interesting options. Couple notes, it only works on iPhone 14, which is kind of a downer, and then you get 2 years of free service. This is not a built-in feature. It's also not based on your carriers either. I think this is carrier independent. So the bottom line is that you get it for 2 years with an iPhone 14 purchase, and then it costs some amount of money. They announced how much today, Dr. Fryer?
They did not say that, but I I said I'm not going to be tempted, but I'm pretty tempted by that. They did not say the price. I dropped in an Engadget article headline: the iPhone 14 can connect to satellites for emergency SOS,
Yep.
which includes some screenshots and a few more details about it. The other thing they said is that you can actually get, again, if you have this service free for 2 years with the iPhone 14, or you pay for it later, you can actually turn on the Find Me feature. And so even when you are in the backwoods and off the grid, you're going to be able to let people know exactly what your geolocation is. They when they talked about the Apple Watch Ultra, which, I mean, as much as I'd like to say I'm just this incredible adventure explorer, I'm not, because they were talking about scuba diving, and I mean, there was some amazing video that they showed, but scuba diving with this watch and all this. But they've if you're going to run a marathon or you're going to run some kind of crazy thing where you swim a long way and you bike a long way and then you run a marathon, which I'm sure both of us will be doing that, just this summer later. Um, when you're in large cities, skyscrapers are notorious for interfering with GPS signals. And so the iPhone 14 has this special technology that is going to enable it to have the most precise geolocation, even within busy urban areas with a lot of skyscrapers. But what was amazing to me was this idea that you could be in the middle of nowhere and then be able to use that satellite technology. And I had it was in 2012 when I last was backpacking at Philmont Scout Ranch. Her son and I went, and at the time, I mean, I used a solar charger to keep my phone going because I recorded audio boo reflections each night, and then I took a bunch of pictures as well. But I had looked into some of these services, kind of like a sat phone, but they're for emergencies to be able to let people know if you're back in the woods where you're at. So I think it's incredible that they've done that. And then another thing that I just remembered is the eSIM. There is not a physical SIM card in the new iPhone 14. It's all digital, and I don't know. I don't know how carriers will feel about that. I mean, I guess that's one less charge, right? Because you used to have to buy a SIM card and pay for that. But I think from a consumer standpoint, that sounds fantastic. Maybe that's good from a security standpoint too, since Apple's layered on so many different security features. But that was something that stood out. But definitely the satellite connectivities, according to The Verge, wasn't expecting it to happen, and I don't think in this version, and it's really amazing. Now, I don't know how many. Well, look, if it's going to help you out, it's going to help you out in a big way, right? Because unless you have a sat phone or you are investing in one of these other kinds of emergency beacon technologies, which I love. REI. We probably have one in Charlotte. I don't know, but we have one in Oklahoma City. I just love to go to those, and I'm always checking out the little tech area. No surprise, where they've got the different batteries and the different kinds of radios and emergency beacons and stuff like that. So Apple probably put maybe even put some people out of business. I don't know, because if you can just have your iPhone 14, maybe you don't need that. I'm sure from a battery standpoint, there's probably still going to be some compelling reasons to have something other than an iPhone that can phone home, so to speak.
Yep. Well, let me make a couple comments about eSIMs, and I want to make one other comment about the Watch OS updates that they announced today. But eSIMs are really interesting to me, and part of it is because I've experimented with them a little bit. I have two devices, an iPad Air 5 and an iPhone 13 Pro. That I've picked up in the last 2 years after my move back to Apple World. And what I would say is that the eSIMs are really intriguing to me because there are all sorts of apps you can download where if you're traveling internationally, you can pre-buy eSIMs that have data on them and then just hook up to that network when you get on the ground in your location. And it's a really convenient feature, especially if you don't want to mess with going to a phone store and picking up a SIM locally or using a sketchy SIM that you might find in an airport somewhere, airport kiosk. So eSIMs are super interesting to me, and one of the applications I'm working on right now, and it doesn't work, and I have a suspicion why, but I'm a T-Mobile customer, but T-Mobile towers aren't as prolific in Montana as Verizon, and Verizon right now has a $30 a month plan through their Visible service that gets you unlimited cell. Not coverage, but unlimited cell usage, including unlimited data. It gets capped after a certain point, and hotspot is minimized to, I think it's 5 or 10 megabits down, but more than good enough. But that would help cover me if I'm in an area that the T-Mobile signal is terrible and I want to utilize data. And it's simple. I've played with another SIM, eSIM on my iPhone. It's just as simple as clicking one button inside the back end and switching data primarily from one SIM to the other. You can still accept calls on both SIMs, and it just declares one primary and one secondary. So eSIMs are really cool, and it's going to make international traveling a little easier because it's going to force a lot of carriers to move to eSIMs. And I've read suggestions that it's a more secure system than old-fashioned cards, but I don't know enough about that to comment. You're on mute, Dr. Fryer.
Then let me just push all these different buttons wildly because I'm panicked. Yeah, my wife is cleaning some things in the kitchen, so I was trying to be a little quiet. That was a little quieter than I intended. Hey, Peggy's there. There are, as usual, a lot of just kind of incremental benefit, improvements and things like that with the iPhone. But I think I just priced on Swappa. I've got an iPhone XR 64 gig. I could probably get $200 for it on Swappa. Apple will give me 140 for it, with a direct trade-in. It's going to be tempting.
Yeah. I have read, though, lots of carrier discount opportunities, so people should be looking around that if you have a phone or if you have a plan, even if you are in a prepaid or postpaid plan, no matter what your strategy there is, there might be opportunities to get subsidies from your carriers to update. So keep that in mind as well.
I will be checking that out.
And
no, go ahead.
I just want to make one more comment about upcoming Apple Watch Series 4. I'm sorry, the new low power mode coming in Watch OS 9 was the number I was looking for, Watch OS 9. And I will tell you, I love my Apple Watch. It's going on almost 2 years old now, and the battery life is not very good anymore. And part of that's because I'm wearing it daily, because like most other Apple Watch users, they're really easy to miss when they're gone, as opposed to my experience with Android watches. But more importantly, though, it's a critical part of my health system. And there's a lot of sensors that I have that talk to my phone. They can let me know about things like low blood sugars. That is really useful with the watch. And I love the fitness tracking. And they are going to introduce a new low power mode, so you can more finitely control what gets scaled back when your battery hits a certain level. And I think that's going to help me in my battery problems. To be honest, I would really like access to the latest watch. I think it's 7th generation is the next one, and I'm looking forward to it. I think I want to make my watch last a little longer before I update.
Yeah, I'm still on a Generation 3 watch, and yeah, I'm not seeing anything just too compelling as far as the shift there. I love it. I mean, I really do. It's the daily carry, and it's amazing how much we are dependent on these things. I guess it would be if I did get at some point some AirPod Pros, it probably would be nice to be able to directly listen on the phone, not have to have directly from the watch, and not have to carry your phone with you. But I don't know. Those are very much luxuries. So
yeah.
Peggy was saying that she felt like the health features on the new watch were pretty impressive. And again, that's one of the things we've said repeatedly on the show. Yeah, the health as well as privacy sides of Apple just really, really are compelling. So I will give a shout out again. Check out the video, just the digital, the ways in which, especially with transitions between products that Apple, transitioned. I mean, I don't know how many people are going scuba diving with their watch, but that might have been the most impressive part of the live, in terms of the video transition. But anyway, it was well done. All right. Hey, can I do this AirTags one? I don't think we did this one, did we? About the baggage handler?
I thought we might have talked about it last week, but then again, we always tend to start expounding the delights of the AirTag.
Well, maybe we did. I didn't think I found that one. Well, no, I'm not seeing it because the word baggage is not on our doc. So I don't. That was one that I just put in. All right, New York Times, August 19th. This is a gift link, so you can see the full version here. She had an AirTag in her lost luggage. It led police to a baggage handler's home. This happened in Florida, and a baggage handler had stolen more than $16,000 in goods from passengers' luggage. The 19-year-old was arrested August 10th and charged with 2 felony counts of grand theft, and it was all thanks to the AirTag, which a woman had placed in her luggage. So anyway, yay AirTags. I don't think he talked about AirTags today at all, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't watch the whole thing, but anyway, that was one of the other we had there. Oh, do you want to go ahead and do the MacBook one though? You've got a MacBook article there.
Yeah, and this is a good. I've been wanting to talk about this since the MacBook Air M2 was released, but I didn't want to link to a bunch of random videos. You have to go watch 45 minutes. This one of the
you were chopping, sir. We're getting a chop.
I'll be right back.
Okay. While we're waiting for Jason to come back, and I'm gonna let him back in, we should probably figure out how to get him logged in so he doesn't have to do that. This is an article from reviewed.com, which I hadn't heard of before, called MacBook Air M1 versus MacBook Air M2. Which should you buy? And just in the nick of time, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. You can even see him again.
The article talks about a really great difference between the M1s and M2s. The M2 beats almost every category of the comparisons they make. The form factor, the screen, the processor. M2 wins, except there is one critical issue, that the storage is slower on the M2 than it is on the M1, and it doesn't matter for what probably most people do, but you are paying $200 more for something that does have a bit of a flaw over the MacBook Air M1. And I'm just going to say one more time, I think the brilliance of the release of Apple Silicon and the way they did it and the way they had their product plan, it was such a dominant increase in speed when they released the Apple Silicon factored processors, the M1 to start off with, that it's so much faster than the competitors, and it's the previous generation of Apple products. I think people are going to be very happy with the M1 for a long time. I just don't see them needing to go to the M3, 4, 5, or 6. So, we'll see
what was the flaw again for the M2? I'm sorry.
It was memory and storage speed.
Huh. Okay. Oh, that's right. I think I do remember seeing some articles about that.
And, again, I don't think most people would notice this. And at first I'm like, ew, I don't want to buy an M2. Not, again, in the market for that. But the bottom line is that it's just not that big of a deal for what most users use it for. And I think that article does a good job of kind of handling the differences between the two if you are in a position to buy.
As an aside, so our laptop situation, we bought my wife actually she did with her own money from her health coaching business, an M1 Mac this summer before we left. But she at school has to use a very old Windows machine. They do not share the guest password for the Wi-Fi, so she cannot use her Mac at all. So she's just using it at home. So I have an M1 at school, and I do have access to a guest network. I think I'm actually going to test the speeds to see if the guest is equivalent to our regular network, because I'm using the machine now. I love it. It's great, but I'm just not going to be able to have an admin account on my machine. So that's not a game changer, right? Or that's not a game ender. I've worked on a Chromebook a lot, and there's not a lot of client software. But anyway, we mentioned that last time because I think University of Montana has asserted some administrative control over your devices too. So I wonder if that's a sign of the times of just more malware and things like that present in Macs, and just how many admins are choosing to not allow users to have admin rights on a Mac. I mean, that used to be very, very normal for all Windows PCs that I knew of on an enterprise level. I didn't know anybody that was granting admin access. Basically, I mean, unless it was a really small organization for any larger organizations. So that could be a sign of the times. I actually visited with someone today who was just talking about the incredible assault on business offices and credit cards, and just the amount of phishing and malware. I need to write a blog post. I was literally go down and quick rabbit hole. I was fished for the first time successfully this weekend. I guess somebody, oh look, they're moving, and this link that I got it should have looked, hedgy to me, but you click it, it looked just like the post office, and we need $3 in order to forward a package to you. And after I had put in my debit card, I was like, I don't think that was really the post office. And so the link, after you had visited it once, the link just went straight to the post office. But if you put it in a different browser, which I guess meant the cookie hadn't been set, you got this nice little thing. Oh, here's your package. I even put in the tracking ID to like look for it. Can I track this? Like, it can't be found. And I still did it. I felt like such an idiot. But I canceled my debit card right away. And, as far as we know, no foul, no harm done. But man, it's just it's crazy how fast that stuff can happen. So
yeah, well, and you're a skilled system admin, right? You're not even just an advanced end user. And I'm saying not that as a criticism of you, sir, but just how sophisticated that these phishing attacks are becoming. And what I will tell you is that it's getting a little sneakier from my vantage point too. For example, the minute I took on a new title at my day job, the number of people aiming scam attacks at my staff supposedly for me, and I don't know what that particularly is called. There's a subsection of phishing that's covered by that, but it'll say something like executive director is the email return, or it will say Jason Neiffer.
Yeah, it's spear phishing because they're specifically spearing your position.
There you go. So and they've increased dramatically in the last 9 months. But one thing I've noticed in the context of that is sometimes when I'm getting phishing emails that involve a link, I'll open it up in a private browser, but I want to go to the link to see what it looks like, and they're getting impressively complex. And I have not fallen for one yet. I have been halfway through a form before, maybe twice actually, before I looked at something. I said, "Wait a second," my spidey sense started tingling, but. The point is that I don't care what your tech savvy is. This is a real risk for everyone. And the only way you deal with this is to remind people, I think somewhat relentlessly, to be on the lookout, because these attacks are only going to increase in frequency.
Absolutely. And, Apple does have an interesting feature for their Apple Card, and that is that there's no printed number on it. You have a digital number, but you can change that with a click of a button. And I don't know what other, banks. I think there's some, and I heard this on Leo Laporte's Twit or Security Now, probably a few years ago, that there was some major bank that was doing sort of these disposable, numbers that you could have. But I know at my last school, we had a quote virtual credit card, which was just a number that we would get, when we needed to make a purchase. But one related thing, then I don't know what your opinion about this is, and if anybody listening to the show has an opinion, I'm really considering changing my cell phone number. I wish there was a newer standard to be able to escape the nightmare of, spam calls and whatever. That one difficulty is that there's a number of multi-factor authentication or two-step verification services that I've enabled with that number. But we're planning on never going back to Oklahoma. So I don't know. We like our numbers. We've had them for 16 years. Of course, if you get a new phone number, you would inherit whoever had thought, that you could get calls for that person, and that number is probably out there, as well. But I don't know if I've got this link in here for privacy. Maybe I do. Yeah, let me segue to this. So this is privacy surveillance. This was the Associated Press on September 2nd. I think this is the one. I'll do this article anyway, and then if not, I'll find the other one. Tech tool offers police no, I don't think it is, mass surveillance on a budget. Law enforcement agencies from suburban Southern California to rural North Carolina have been using an obscure cell phone tracking tool, at times without search warrants, that gives them power to follow people's movements months back in time, according to public records and internal emails. It is called Fog Reveal. It searches hundreds of billions of records from 250 million mobile devices, harnesses the data to create location analyses, patterns of life. And basically, this is what I've suspected, for a while. The cell phone number is maybe even more important than our social security number in terms of connecting dots for data. There is this vast opaque cloud, opaque to us, of data that's been collected about us, and this is the surveillance capitalism economy. And so anyway, this is interesting because law enforcement is being able to tap into this, and the company's saying, oh, this is all legitimately sold data, it's all, data broker stuff. But it reminds me of Clearview AI, which was this database of scraped images, which again, security forces were using to get evidently really quick and in some cases, maybe a lot of cases, I don't know, quote unquote accurate facial IDs that they couldn't get from other systems. But that's an eye opener. But I don't know that it's illegal because again, these data companies are selling all this, and companies can be in China or Russia. I don't think there's really much regulation around that right now. And so anyway, if I was to change my cell number, I could try to be a little more careful about not giving it out because, like a lot of folks, oh yeah, sure, I'm at CVS or Walgreens, and I'd like to get $1 off my, purchase or whatever. Here's my cell phone number. And so the more that we give that out, the more that's wedded to all of our activities in both the face-to-face physical world as far as purchases and other things, and then also electronic. Do you have an opinion about that? Is it a good thing to think about changing a cell number, or is that maybe it's all fruitless? It's hopeless. There's no way to escape surveillance capitalism.
Well, I think the thing you'd have a problem with, I mean, unless you're choosing to get an additional number, is that I still think it's just going to start to track you anyways, right? Like that, and it would, because I think the problem here is systemic in that I don't think you can get away from this. You could de-Google and be one of the people that starts hosting your own email and never utilizes any of the search engines, right? Or only does that with a privacy flag. I see your distaste of these as options.
I'm not doing it, right.
And then you could get a de-Googled phone, right? That's a thing too. It's an Android phone that has has all the stuff stripped away.
I love YouTube. I love the recommendation engines and things. I don't know. There's certainly, my wife for some reason has had a huge number. Like we're talking almost 100 a day sometimes of these spam calls that are coming,
Yeah.
and coming from the Oklahoma area code. So I don't know. You're right. I mean, there's not the path to true low profile privacy is so difficult that most people are not going to go down that road. And I'm not wanting to go down that kind of a hardcore road. I love YouTube. I love the recommendation engine. I'm using it all the time. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to delete my watch history. I want to keep finding stuff that I wouldn't find otherwise. But at the same time, there's some different sides to that. And I don't know, there's also just a practical side of living in a new area and they're like, what, the 405 area code? And I don't know, being at school and all that kind of stuff fit in a little bit more with the local area code. I don't know. But if anybody has any opinions about that, I have a sense, and I guess maybe I've heard somebody or read somebody talk about it, that at some point we're going to get a new phone system, right? Because SMS particularly is completely insecure, and we've got other messaging services obviously that run on our phones, but still SMS is like email. It's a ubiquitous, everyone basically has that. At some point we need a system that is designed with more security in mind. But and I'm sure somebody at AT&T Labs, or whatever has already devised that kind of thing. DARPA's probably got that all figured out, but the roadmap for that may be quite a ways off. I've never even heard anybody proposing, oh, look, we're going to have a new system. And because that's international, right? That touches everybody. So
Right.
Anyway, sorry, I went down a rabbit hole there.
That's okay. We go down one of those once in a while.
Hey, Peggy got rid of her landline though, and she is cell phone only. So congratulations, Peggy.
Yeah, I know quite a few people that in the last year or so have finally come to that reality. So
when are you going to have a Starlink subscription, sir?
It's tempting because it would allow me to work remotely in some areas of the backcountry that I can access. So I soon enough, maybe it just seems like it'd be something fun to play with too. But because what I need in my life is more tech toys.
Hey, well, the danger there is no disconnect. I mean, you can choose to be disconnected, obviously, at any time. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's that double-edged sword where sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually going to be disconnected here, and that's purposeful. So anyway, there would be no length limit to the digital tether or the digital leash if you had the Starlink.
Yep. Totally true.
All right, what else should we talk about tonight?
Well, let's do a couple more privacy articles. There was an interesting article in USA Today on September 5th that talked about a ruling by Irish regulators that fined Instagram $400 million for violating EU teen privacy rules. And it's super interesting because I went into the article thinking to myself, well, what do these rules do? The European laws are much more locked down than United States laws in regards to guarding privacy, and I think that's particularly true of those under the age of 18. And it turns out a lot of teens were getting around the limitations of their accounts by converting their account to a business account, which allowed them to share things like their phone number and address, which is a violation of teen privacy laws in Ireland. So interesting that was the issue, but $400 million fine for Instagram violating those privacy rules.
And again, let's remind everyone that means Facebook, or should we say Meta, which that's a small pittance. It really is. It's just kind of amazing that we do not have any viable privacy legislation or privacy protections in the United States. And I don't think there's a roadmap for those actually happening. Like, I don't think there's a strong constituency. We'll have these, whistleblower, tells all and Cambridge Analytica and these different, things that hit the news cycle, but then they're gone. And there's not any kind of enduring, like, okay, we must change. So, it's really up to us, right? It's up to us as individual consumers. It's up to us as citizens and whatever organizations we're a part of, our schools, churches, whatever organization. I mean, if we don't take steps to try and protect our own privacy, I don't think the U.S. government is stepping in to do this anytime soon. And that's kind of fascinating because we talk about this all the time, and you just kind of think, okay, something's going to change. But I think these kind of articles, Europe, yes, they have GDPR and some of these other regulations, and there's these small little fines of $400 million. But, to a company like Meta, that really is nothing. And it's just
couch change.
It's just the cost of doing business. So yeah, oops, we'll try to fix that. So.
Okay, and one last article on privacy. This is from Vox. You're being tracked through your email, and here's how to stop it. And one of the things I want to talk about for just a moment is, and this goes under, I think, some digital citizenship or kind of buyer beware information. It also has to do with the email topic that Wes and I were talking about just a few moments ago in regards to kind of changing cell phone numbers. But almost everything you do in an email that comes from a vendor is tracked in some way, shape, or form. And there's very clever ways that they do that. Even if you just open the email, you notice the graphics pop up sometimes in the email. You can shut that off. Doesn't let you that graphic for the sender of the email that you opened up the email, because other downloaded those particular images. And there are all sorts of ways that here, I don't think I would go through the steps to block that. There are
Jason, I hate to interrupt you, but I think we need to have you, if this is a fix, disconnect and reconnect again. So your audio started to go garbled there, and you are now frozen in a very dramatic, expressive pose. So, okay. So he's out and he's back in. What might be happening is that sometimes, and I think I've seen this before with a cellular connection, it's not like just a quota or something like that that's being reached, but sometimes the connection, there he is, he's back. Hey, yes, he is. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. I was
Howdy.
just sometimes I've seen this happen before where, after a while the signal degrades and it's sort of like they want you to stop streaming and doing what you're doing, but then when you reconnect, you're back to full bars. So he's back, ladies and gentlemen. It's just, this may be the routine tonight. Hey, we only have 20 more minutes. So, all right. So your last, you were garbling there at the end. So your privacy point there was, again,
was that I'm not sure if I would go through all these steps to make my email more private, because all these options on this page are investments of time and resources, and in one case money. But I think it's just important to understand, right? Like it's very little truly anonymous activity on the internet. And if you open up an email, you may be sending data back to a vendor, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Well, and it talks about Apple's hide my email feature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't done my email lesson yet with my students, and I need to, because we've got, as always, a lot of kids that are overwhelmed with so many different email messages. But being careful with your email and being careful what you subscribe for or subscribe to, and the kinds of giveaways and all these things that you could put your email in for, it can all add up. And so I think it is great that Apple, I don't know if we've had the article, but the amount of money they estimate Meta or Facebook has lost simply because of the do not track option, which a majority of users, still choose to do on Apple devices, is just really extraordinary. So you may want to go audio only again, Dr. Neiffer. You had frozen up there again for a little bit. I do not like not seeing you, but
a voice from the void.
A voice from, yes, and you're, yeah, that's right. We're used to just really amazing visuals with the mountains and everything, and now he's just become a white dot on a black field. All right. Okay, so I think that takes care of the privacy surveillance. Let me do kind of a different one. Hey, I'm going to talk about Microsoft. Usually Jason's the only one to do that. This is from Tech Radar Pro on September 5th. The U.S. Army could soon be equipped with Microsoft HoloLens. I actually shared this as a geek. No, it wasn't a Geek of the Week. It's a Wonderlink with my students this week. I didn't know, and maybe you do, Dr. Neiffer. Do you know how much a HoloLens 2 retails for, if you just as a consumer?
I would guess $1,000 to $2,000.
$3,500,
Wow.
and it goes up from there to over $5,000 for some industrial, customizations. The Army has ordered 5,000 headsets, and that order is thought to be worth around $373 million. Assistant Secretary for Acquisition Douglas Bush has signed off on that, according to Bloomberg. And the article says the new Integrated Visual Augmentation System, IVAS, units have been heavily adapted from the consumer HoloLens 2. But this is just kind of amazing. There's a partnership. Well, okay, so evidently the military overall, back in November of 2018, they secured a $480 million contract to produce 100,000 of them, but there's $21.9 billion evidently in March 2021 was announced for HoloLens. So I think this is a pretty big deal. Number one, I mean, I'm more familiar with the Oculus and the $400 price point. That's the one that I've played with. But this is a very serious level of investment on the part of the U.S. Army into this augmented reality technology. And again, for people, we haven't maybe talked about this in a while, we're not talking virtual reality like Oculus. The augmented reality is you're still seeing the real world, but it's a mix of virtual things. So if you go to the HoloLens website, as we did this week in class, you'll see, manufacturing, healthcare, education, these different kinds of applications. But, somebody could be working, for instance, on fixing some kind of machine, and then overlaid on top of what they're actually seeing are the instructions and data, and so I'm sure that probably like a lot of first person shooter games that give you all sorts of data on a dashboard about your teammates and health and vital statistics and all kinds of things like that. Those sorts of things are available for real to these soldiers that are wearing these headsets. So do I think we're going to be seeing these taking over education anytime soon? No, certainly not at that price point, but I think this certainly indicates AR moving from just a wow, that would be cool, someday we'll have a Jedi Council hologram meeting, to look at what the U.S. military is doing with this. There's other groups that are going to be using it and probably are using it as well.
Well, I'll just make a quick comment about, I guess, the good news about this for consumers, and I guess what I would also say classrooms, is that if the Pentagon is dropping, hundreds of millions of dollars on this, it does have a chance of making the technology cheaper in future generations. And I don't think augmented reality is a real viable classroom tool quite yet. But in a year or two, when these headsets get below $500, for example, or there's a classroom model that maybe has a little bit of feature discrepancy, other than that, viably the same, that's great news. So I will say, stay tuned, EdTech world, because there's probably a cheap application of this coming sometime soon.
I think it'll be interesting in the DIY world. We talked on the show last week about how Apple is allowing, people to theoretically crack open devices and fix them, but it's so complicated and difficult. Like, who's going to do that? But if you had, an augmented reality headset that was perhaps, along with video and whatever, giving you step-by-step instructions, and you can see all this stuff overlaid on top of it, then I can see that. They I don't remember what the actual numbers are, but compared to a typical gasoline powered internal combustion engine, electric cars have way fewer moving parts. Like, it's crazy. Instead of thousands of parts, I think there's like hundreds. So anyway, if we have more of a DIY world, or let's think about the people that'll be on Mars, being able to have that kind of technology, essentially to not have to be looking at a phone, but to have that data present as you work and you're doing things, is pretty interesting. So yeah, probably not coming to a classroom near us anytime soon, but maybe it will be a bit cheaper. All right, what else, sir? We have 12 more minutes, or 13.
Well, let's see here. Maybe a couple of Google-related articles. We talk about this one first because I think this is super interesting if you're in the market for a Chromebook. Chrome Unboxed reported on September 6th that they did some tests, and it turns out the 12th generation Intel Core i3 processor is an absolute performance monster in Chromebooks. And they tested out a Chromebook with this particular chip in it. So that'd be the latest generation i3 chip. And for those of you that are unaware of kind of chip inside baseball with chips, there are 3 levels of chips that are considered the faster consumer chip. That's the i3, i5, and i7. And then if you want a slower chip, it's sometimes called a Pentium or Celeron processor. But an i3 chip is usually a respectable chip for basic advanced computing, right? It's not going to blow anything away, but if you're not doing any applications that require a significant processor, it doesn't really matter. Well, as it turns out, the i3 in the most current generation of Intel processors, so this would be an i3 12 something, 1201, 1205 number, it's amazing, and it just blows away all sorts of desktop benchmarks. And because I know a lot about desktop benchmarks, I know how crazy large these numbers are. And so if you are in the market for a faster Chromebook, right, these faster Chromebooks last longer, they give a better user experience. There's a ridiculous one on sale right now. It's the 16-inch Acer Chromebook which is ridiculously large. It's got a full-size keyboard. It's it's really, really, really ridiculous. But if that's what you're looking for, it's $550 right now. There's a link in the Chrome Unboxed article. So just thought I'd share a nerdy Chromebook article.
And from the chat room, Peggy had not been aware of the Apple Mail privacy feature, so she's turned that on. The thing is, Peggy, this is probably going to help more with like new subscriptions, because I think, from my understanding, what it will do is let you know, like if you use this special email that still goes to your .mac or .me or whatever account, if that ends up being sold and shared, then you'll be able to say, oh, when I subscribed to Wired magazine, they sold my subscription. And I have not been using it, but that's my understanding, is that's the kind of thing that it helps with. But if you've got your regular email already out there with existing subscriptions, I don't think it will really help. But with new ones, it will. And I mean, it's good that Apple's making this effort. And again, from an educational standpoint, whether people are going to utilize it fully and go far down the rabbit hole of trying to be more private and protect their data, we need to know how the world works and how these companies work. And at some point, maybe we'll have some regulation that helps protect our privacy. But at this point, it is up to us. But Apple is doing some huge favors for consumers by giving us a do not track button and giving the option to be able to have a unique email address. Yahoo did that way back in the day, and I actually used that. You picked an alias, and then you could have different things that would be hyphenated and create all of these email aliases, and they still work too. Fortunately, Yahoo, mine at least, authenticates through Google, and so I don't think, hopefully that account is not being hacked. But anyway, yeah, as Peggy says, it's a starting point. So definitely something to be aware of and something to consider trying. Are you in the market for a new Chromebook, Dr. Neiffer? Do you need an i3 Chromebook to add to your article?
I do not. Although I will tell you, I did look at, it's like, oh, $550, that's kind of a lot of money. So then I started looking at the refurbished ones they're selling. I was like, no, go away. You don't need this. You don't need this.
How about the Android Central article? Can you really survive college with just a Chromebook?
Yeah, so I get this question a fair bit when people find out that I'm a Chromebook guy, and I'm not really a fair comparison because I always have access to really all three platforms all the time in many different ways, because that's the way my world engages right now. But there was a pretty reasonable article in Android Central. Andrew Myrick talks about whether or not it's a viable thing, and his answer is a surprising yes, that you can get away with a Chromebook, for most applications in most degrees in most colleges. And of course, there's clear exceptions to this. I know because I have former students and members of my family that have gone to engineering school or are math majors and need access to certain programs, although there's a decent chance they might be available in Linux. But, where you need a Mac or a PC. But for, I think, most students that don't have one of those highly specialized cases, a Chromebook's enough.
And from an educational standpoint, as I've mentioned, I don't have an admin password on my laptop anymore. Our IT department has helped me with a few things that have been installed, because now software not only needs authenticated permission to go into the applications folder, but if it is a screen capture software or something like that, it can need permission in the system settings. So two thoughts about that. Number one, like a Chromebook, you can run so much now out of the Chrome browser. Password managers, you don't have to do the client side. You can just run them as a Chrome extension. Screencasting, I used Loom for the last couple of years, really loved that. But our school wants us to use Screencastify, which works. It's browser based and it's an extension. The other thing I've done, which is a little bit tricky, is you can actually put whatever you want in the downloads folder, and you can run it as an application right out of the downloads folder. You don't have to drag it over to the applications folder. But depending on what the application is, you may not be able to fully run it. It depends on the kind of program. But anyway, the fact that you can do so much on a Chromebook is not only beneficial for Chromebook users, it's also beneficial for folks that just want to do things without having an admin account or, going to get special permission or something like that to run things. There's just a heck of a lot you can do now using the browser and using browser extensions. So that's good news. All right. Let's see. Why don't I pick up these media literacy articles? So shout out to Renee Hobbs with the Media Education Lab, I think, for sharing both of these. CBS News on October 22nd reported that Illinois high school students to receive media literacy instruction this year. And I had heard...
Follow today in Indiana, following the state's passage of a wide-ranging...
I didn't really want to play that video, so sorry for that autoplay. I had heard about this probably a year ago. And this is something that, anytime you have educational mandates, there's multiple sides to that in terms of all the folks who are going to spring up to provide that, service and professional development. But I think it is a good move forward to say, hey, we want all of our students to, have better media literacy skills. And so that's the state of Illinois. That's the first state, I think, to mandate that as a requirement for high school. And this one is from the Military Times on August 1st. This is fascinating. The Marine Corps wants to develop media literacy training. The headline says it won't be easy. And not that probably many of us are reading the latest publications of the U.S. Marine Corps, but the article says that inside the Marine Corps' newest doctrinal publication is a hint at a new initiative focused on training the rank and file to be media literate. And so the phrase media literacy appears 6 times in the Marine Corps doctrinal publication 8-Information, which was released in June of 2022. And it is to both preserve force resiliency and deny the enemy influence attacks based on disinformation. And so the document quotation, which is at the end of the article, says, quote, "No individual can fully know or understand the breadth of available information that amplifies cognitive shortcuts, biases, and assumptions. However, media literacy installs a necessary level of critical thinking in everyday interactions with digital and traditional news and information environments. Effective training in this area reduces Marines' vulnerabilities to malign influence and supports force resiliency through unity of effort." So, yay! That is a great sign, and not that that's going to sway local school boards or legislatures, but I think those are both examples of forward-thinking, states in the case of Illinois, a forward-thinking organization in the case of the Marine Corps, and we need more media literacy for everybody, not just for students, not just for soldiers. Like every citizen needs more. So,
I thought that Marine Corps article was super interesting myself. I just pulled it up earlier to get prepped on it, and yeah, but I guess that tells you where we're at, right? Like it's a real bottom line commentary about where we're at.
Oh, you cut up. You broke up a little bit. Wait. I've got to ask you one question though before I'll share one more article. What is the status of the Neiffer Dogecoin investment? Are you completely Dogecoin retirement at this point?
No, I still, my Dogecoin is still worth way more than I invested in it, but the ridiculous returns I had last year have disappeared. So I would not lose any money at this point, but I certainly don't have the gains I had, say, 12, 16 months ago. So.
Okay. Well, here's a fast related story. This is from a source I've never heard of before, called decrypto.co. The headline from today: troubled crypto broker Voyager Digital to auction off assets next week. We have an entrepreneurship high school course, and the teacher frequently brings in some guest speakers. And so there was a serial entrepreneur who I think has been super, super successful based on a few little things that he mentioned. He has used play money or whatever, not play money, but it's real money. But he's used some of his discretionary income to do some investments in crypto. And he mentioned that it was, and I'd never heard of this, tied up in this exchange called Voyager Digital. And so I guess what happened is they've taken a lot of money and Bitcoin and other things, but they've invested it in other kinds of crypto, which tanked, and now the entire thing is bankrupt. So it just like going to Ameritrade or something like that. Wasn't there something that you were using when you were doing Dogecoin, a broker?
Yeah, Robinhood.
Robinhood, that's right. So using one of these exchanges to do the purchases and worry about passwords and that kind of stuff. He had done that, but now it turns out all of the investment that he made in crypto is actually tied up in this bankruptcy and will even, get his money out. So crypto is a controversial and risky thing. So please, folks, don't go out and invest all of your retirement savings in cryptocurrency. Yes, you just got that bit of crypto advice for here on the EdTech Situation Room. I think, Dr. Neiffer, we probably better Geek of the Week it because I think we've been talking for an hour.
Yep, I think that's the case. I want to share a really interesting website, and I'm not sure if I've shared this with you before, Wes, privately, but it is Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Pharmacy, which is an investment by Texas gazillionaire Mark Cuban. And the idea behind it is that it does not take insurance, but it charges you straight cost for your drugs. What the drug companies charge, you pay for shipping, and you pay it have the thing packed up. You pay essentially for the labor to make it happen, and otherwise it's sold to you at cost. And even with insurance, and I have pretty good insurance, every single one of my medications but one is cheaper through this Cost Plus Pharmacy than it would be through my traditional pharmacy. And my mom and dad, who are on Medicare, they're above 65, both have found that their medications are way cheaper than if they tried with Medicare. So Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Pharmacy.
There you go. Did not know about that. All right. Three fast ones here. WiseStamp email signature management. One of many different tools that my new school is using, and it's really slick. They've got all our the signature file set up. So you just enter some information, boom, click, and it's right there in Google for you. So if your organization is interested in doing a little more standardization with email signature files, that might be helpful. mycreativetype.com. Jason, have you done this one before from Adobe to see what your creative personality style is?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I don't think this is one like the Harry Potter quizzes and whatnot of which house you are that were like weaponized by Cambridge Analytica back in 2015 and 16. I think this is legit. It's from Adobe, but the website is just mycreativetype.com. So I am the adventurer. This is the kind of color, what are you? Who do you want to work with? I was supposed to work with the artist. So anyway, and then the last thing is I don't think we mentioned this last time. No, because we talked about that New York Times article, which is kind of a bad one. I shouldn't have ended with this. We'll have to say something else that's more positive. There's this thing called Kiwi Farms, and it's something that we should know about as teachers. Did we talk about that? Maybe we did mention it. But there's a Twitter thread that Ben Collins has done, and as he says, there's a danger of highlighting bad parts of the internet, but there's so many kids and others that are being affected by that platform. And so anyway, that is a digital citizenship public service announcement. So there were a few articles that we didn't have time to talk about today, but we did a pretty good job covering them. Dr. Neiffer, when you're not here on Wednesdays, battling your Verizon hotspot and fighting for bandwidth and dreaming of Starlink, where can people find you and connect with you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, TechSavvyTeach.
And I am wesfryer.com/after. If you want to find all my channels, I'm W Fryer on Twitter. So we have gone 3 minutes over our hour, but that's okay. You're getting what you paid for tonight because this is free. This is the EdTech Situation. We are a once-a-week podcast talking about the technology news. You can find us on edtechsr.com, where generally when the very slacking and non-productive post-production editor, which would be moi, usually we're going to have our smaller audio versions that are there. But we have versions on Facebook and YouTube, which immediately encode and are archived. You can also check out all the show notes at edtech.com/links. So we want to thank Peggy George for joining us at our early time out in Arizona. And hello to my dad, who's probably checking us out. Maybe Shannon. We got a few folks that are checking us out. Please follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, and let us know if you listen to the show. If you got any ideas or suggestions, we're happy to listen to that. But until next time, we encourage you to stay savvy, stay safe. Don't be fished. Yeah, that's not going to stop anything. But hey, just be ready to block your card and cancel it if you happen to do something stupid, as I did. So yay, it's a good time in Arizona for the EdTech Situation Room. Until next time, stay savvy, stay safe, and we will hope Dr. Neiffer will find more bandwidth next week. I'm confident he will.
Good night, everyone.